Hi, I'm Mark from North Central Laboratories, and I'm here today to talk about the Genesys 10 spectrophotometer. First, we will give some background information on the machine. Then we will talk about creating a standard curve, and finally, we'll go through recalling the curve we created. The Genesys 10 spec works by measuring the amount of light absorbed by a sample. Without getting involved in the math, reagents are added to a sample to develop a color. In most cases, the more of the analyte present, the darker the color gets. The spec then works by measuring the amount of light that has passed through the sample and calculates the light absorbed by the sample. The amount of light absorbed is proportional to the concentration. The main exception to this is fluoride, in which case the color gets lighter as the fluoride concentration increases, but we'll worry about that later. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with color wheel and comparator test kits. These kits work the same basic way. The more of the analyte present, the darker the color. However, in most cases, these kits are nowhere near accurate enough because the accuracy of these kits is determined by an individual's color perception, which varies from person to person and even day to day for the same person. Typically, the spec is between 10 to 100 times more accurate than these kits. The spec can also detect down to much lower levels, which is often required by today's low regulatory limits. By the way, a colorimeter is a cheap and simplified version of a spec. Colorimeters lack a diffraction grating, which means they can only be used at one wavelength, which also means they can typically only be used for testing one thing. Also, they are usually much less accurate than a real spec. Something that costs $300 is not going to be as good as something that costs $4,000. Here we have a close-up of the Genesys 10 spectrophotometer. When you first power on the unit, it's going to make a grinding noise as part of the startup sequence. The startup sequence includes initializing, calibrating the filter wheel, finding zero order, finding energy peaks, and calibrating the grating. This process takes about a minute. It's recommended that you wait 30 minutes before using the machine to allow the lamp to warm up. This is the sample compartment of the unit. Some units come with a 6-cell sample holder, and others come with a single-cell sample holder. There are a number of different cuvettes that can be utilized by the sample holder, the most common of which are the 10mm glass round cuvette and the 13mm glass round cuvette. You can also purchase a separate sample holder that can accommodate a 1-inch glass round cuvette. When you purchase your unit, you have the option to include a built-in printer. However, if you buy a spec without an internal printer and later decide you want one, you can purchase it as a separate unit. However, it cannot be mounted to the spec's internal housing. Next, we will talk about the keypad and display of the unit. Here we have the keypad of the machine. You've got your basic number pad. There's a utility key, which will bring up a menu with instrument settings, which you can navigate using the arrows. You can select an item in this menu using the Enter key. The Escape key will first exit that selection, and then if you press it again, it will exit to the main screen. The Test key brings up a list of the different test types that the instrument can perform, including the standard curve. This menu can be navigated the same way as the utility menu with the arrows, the Enter key, and the Escape key. The Print key will print the current values displayed on the screen using whichever printer you have set up. Here we have sample cell holder buttons, which correspond to labels on the sample cell holder of the unit. There's a blank sample 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where you can select which sample cell you want the instrument to read, and it'll rotate and read that sample for you. We also have 4 soft keys, which have functions that changed based on the menu or screen you're at, and there will be words on the screen that tell you the function of each of those buttons currently. This concludes part 1 of our Genesys 10 spectrophotometer video.